Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and we work on a Django app that I'm building. I walk you through the steps that I'm taking to put the site together. We're going to continue on this app tonight and just continue going through the issues that are coming up from my primary user using the site. Before I do that, I want to let you know about ways that you can get in touch with me if you want to learn more about Django or Python. There's a link to my website above, or at least the URL to it. And I have a mailing list there. I post articles about Django and Python there, and you can connect to me there. I also have profiles on GitHub and Twitter and Patreon, and all of these places usually go by the same handle of MB Lehman. So if you want to connect with me, or if you want to support me financially, you can find information on those sites at that handle, and I'd be grateful for anybody who does. I do want to thank the current patrons that I do have: Rupert, Abdulaziz, Patrick, Mark, Eric. Thank you for contributing and helping me keep this going, and pay for hosting costs for podcasts and other things that I do. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's look at where we're gonna focus on tonight. And I'm not really sure, frankly, but we'll look at the issue list that I've got on GitHub and pick one, because that's a good, reasonable way to go about this. So what can I see that would be a good one to start with? So you're aware, a lot of these have been coming in from my spouse. As she's been using the site, she's been making comments about what is and is not useful, and what seems to be not quite right, or little usability things that have made her life better as I've been able to add them. So that's what a lot of these stem from as we look at them. So let's start with this one right here. There's some calculation that's happening that's not correct, and we can look at the app and I can show you what it looks like, and the way it's supposed to be, and the way that it currently is, and you can get a feel for it. So let's start, and for some reason my computer is just revved up. What are you doing, computer? I have no idea. Kernel is going crazy. You all can't hear it probably, but my fan is just going nutso. So hopefully my mic is blocking out all of that audio. Okay, but you don't care about my fan noises. Let's get the application up and running and looking at it. And if you have any questions, I do have the chat open. Feel free to ask me anything. So ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. I try and keep it to those topics just to stay focused and not get too crazy distracted, but I will field other questions. So if you have text editor questions or some other stuff that is popping to mind, I will do those on occasion too. If we get it too far afield, I can bring us back to what we're working on. All right, so the app server is running, and we're going to bring it up and see what we see. So the thing that is failing right now is if we go to the student's view of the tasks. So this is tasks about Mark in particular, and it's for this course here. And one of the features that my spouse had requested was to put a planned completion date. Basically, look ahead to all of the tasks that are on the calendar and just slot them in, one per day slot that's available, and see how long it would take before you got to the end of the school year. How many tasks do you have? Do you need more work? Whatever, that kind of stuff. So for this current school year, which is operating, which we can look at, is set to operate from January 15th to December 1st. It's looking fine. If you look at it, this all looks reasonable. August 27th is tomorrow, so it's saying like this would be tomorrow, and I put a bunch of junk data in here for you. So if you notice anything weird, it's not because of the planning of my spouse, it's because I'm messing with this data as I'm doing other things on the site, and this is a good test course to work on. But anyway, this looks okay. It's planning out for tomorrow. It skips the appropriate days to skip over the weekends because those aren't part of the school year. And it does the projection out to the end. All looks good. What I observed the other day, though, that's not correct is if you have a course that is in the future. If you do that in the future, then the planned completion data is inaccurate. So what ends up happening in my observation is that it will go from, the calculation is based on today. So in this case, August 26, 2020. So even if the school year is for the future year, 2021, then it still bases that calculation on today. And so the effect of that is that the date that will appear is not the right date. For instance, if I had the school year start on January 1st of 2021, and this was the first task on it, you would expect it to say January 1st, 2021, assuming that's actually a school day. I'm not sure if it is or not. But instead, it would read some far future date. It would get all messed up. So I encountered this problem in another spot in the app, and the solution that I found was to set it so that it was either today if the school year is active, or into projecting for the start date of the school year if the school year is still in the future. So that's what we need to do, I think, to fix up this page. So let's go and let's find the other comparable spot so you can see it. I think it was the daily view, so that's in the core views file. Yeah, you can see it was right in here. And so when it was doing this calculations for building schedules, it was saying, basing it off of today, and that just wasn't right. So I found that if I did this, this little setting of checking for this, if today is less than the start date of the school year, and setting it appropriately if it wasn't, then that fixed the problem. So we want to go to the students' views and see where this is getting set, and see it should be a pretty similar situation, but it's still worth checking that out. So this is the student course view is what we really care about. And we need to dig into this and see where I have planned days coming out of. Yeah, you can see it's happening right here, I think. So the problem is that it's pulling just from today, and it's not taking into consideration, has the school year started yet? And I wonder if I can make this visible so that it's really obvious, but hopefully you're just trusting me at this. You know what we can do probably is we can write the test for the case that I expect would fail, and you can see how it wouldn't be right. So I think that's probably the best way to do this. So let's open up the students test views file and create a new test here. So this is the student course view, just here, which has a few tests in it that should probably collapse some of those. Anyway, we'll do what we can. And looking for one that has like planned date in here. Maybe I don't have it in there. Let's see, planned date. Okay, well there is one that has it. Has tasks with completed. Okay. All right, let's just go to the bottom and add a new test. I've been, so interestingly, as time has progressed, I've been learning more, as I've been developing this application and playing more with these models, I've been getting a better feel for what makes a shorter test. I mean, if you look at this, there's actually a fair amount of setup to make all of this work. And I'm hoping that we can get less and less of that as time goes on. So we'll see. Okay, so what is our new test? We want to test that planned dates for future years. Well, that's probably it. Planned dates for future school years. And I want to put a doc string because that's not going to mean anything to me in like 2 months' time. So we'll say the planned dates for a future school year are accurate. Still a little vague, but yeah. Maybe what can we say to make that more accurate? Aside from the word accurate. The planned dates for a future school year match with the year. Okay. So that feels decent enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, in fact, I don't even think, let's leave just so we can see everything. Let's just work on the test file right now. I want to show that it's broken, and I don't need the view code to prove to you that it's broken. So what we want is to be able to have most of what's like in the get test. So there's a test at the top that has everything. I don't know if this has everything properly though. Because it checks that it can get a 200, but that doesn't mean that the data is set up correctly. Our version of this is going to have a task that hasn't happened yet. So that's going to be perhaps a tricky part of this. So what can we do? Well, I lied. We're going to look at that views file again because I needed to make sure I get my head on straight. The student is based on all of the students that are available for the year. And there is a UUID that's coming in here from the URL argument, which I believe you can see. And there's also another UUID for the course. So there's two UUIDs. So the first UUID is for the school, is for the student themselves. And then the second one is for the course that we're trying to actually look at. And so we have to, what's happening here is that it gets the tasks for the student from the course and pulls them all out and then puts them in a data structure that the view needs in order to set them up. So we just care about having a task that is not complete yet. And because it's not complete, then it will give a planned date and show when it should be done. If it was a complete task, in other words, it has some coursework associated with it, then the date would already be set by when that coursework was added. So that's what's going on in this little block right here and why it's checking if the particular task has coursework associated. Okay. So I was trying to check for like enrollment and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know that really matters so much, but it might be the easiest way to make sure that we have the right data. All right, hopefully we can really keep that closed this time so you can see a full view of the file. So we're going to start with, what are we going to start with? We need a user for sure, and we need to have we want that user to ultimately log in and go to this page. So that's all well and good. And it makes sense to check for a 200 response because we want this test to fail before we get to any assertions if it's not a correct response. And you can see we don't have a student yet. So if we use an enrollment, then we could get the student side of this. So the enrollment, as a reminder, if you haven't been following the streams in the past, is how we connect a student to a particular grade level. So if we make one of these, then the factory boy will make both a student and the grade level. So then we need a course that is part of the grade level. So if we do the course, we say course factory is the thing we want to use, and it needs to have the grade level connected with it in this way. The grade level relationship is a many-to-many, so we attach it by passing it in as a list. And the actual grade level is, we can get access to it through the enrollment instance. Okay, so now I've got a course, and hopefully this is enough right here to make the test pass. But it doesn't. Why did it not pass? 404. You know why? Because we made a user, but this is the effectively, this user is trying to access somebody else's school because I didn't do this properly. So we need to come in here to the enrollment factory, and that we need to say the grade level. Well, I probably need to do two things actually. I can now see them. All right. So this line above is really what we want. I've thought through this. I should have just looked at it. Instead, I was trying to go from first principles, which is not always what you want to do. Okay, but I can spell it out now that we have it. So the student that gets created has to be associated with the school, and the grade level that gets created also has to be associated with the school, the school that belongs to the user. And without doing this line right here, then both of the generated data don't belong to that user, and it makes sense that the user would get a 404 because we don't want to expose anything to people that shouldn't have access. It should just look like that data doesn't exist. That way no one can like snoop out anything. All right, so now if we do a get check 200, everything passes. So we get the 200 response. Okay, so here's where we need to change some stuff a little bit. I think really what we need to make this test match is we need to go to make sure that the school year is at a far future date. So that means we have to create a school year for the test. So there's going to be a school year factory, and we need to make sure that it's for the future. And there's another couple of things that I want to do about from this point of view to make sure that this test is always consistent. And we'll talk through that in a second. But let's do the dates first. So we're going to take, well, let's just close this off for a moment and then say that well, we can give it at least one parameter. The school for it is going to be equal to the user's school. And then we're going to replace this much right here. Instead of saying school, we're now saying the school year is our school year attribute. And effectively, I mean, this is not really changing much, except it's giving us a variable that we can talk about the school year. It would have been possible to add these attributes through this one called the enrollment factory, but that was just going to get a little messy. Okay, so the school year has a start date and an end date. Those things need to be in the future. And in fact, because the daily view had a very similar test, I'm actually going to bring up that file and look for the same kind of scenario, because I'm sure that I set up the school year in the right way there. Okay. So it's testing this far future schedule. I think this is it. No, hold on. No, here it is. Test future school year. So we're going to need today. That is true. That will be part of this test. Because we need to anchor our calculations against something else. And the other thing that I did here, I'm going to take all of these attributes actually. The start date, the end date, and this days of the week that it runs on. And we're going to do this little number here to close that off. Whoops, in a comma. Okay. So I need to bring in some other imports, but we'll see. I'll talk you through like what's going on here. And while I'm doing some of this, we are going to use dateutil to give us some school year to work with. And the reason that we're using date util and relative delta is so that I don't have to hard code a particular set of dates and look at calendars and stuff. This gives me a consistent way to say, like, hey, I'm going to use a school year, and I'm going to have the start date look ahead by 1 year and go to the particular month and particular day of next year. So no matter when you are, this could be December 31st of this year, 2020, in which case the next school year would start the next day, or it could be January 1st of 2021, in which case if you add, it would be January 1st of 2022, if you follow all that. So in other words, this addition right here is just ensuring that the school year is always going to be talking about a future state, which is the kind of condition that we need to check. The other attribute that I'm adding here is this days of the week. When I have my factories run by default, I make sure that they run on what would be a pretty conventional school week in the United States, which is, and most places in the world, I would imagine, of Monday through Friday. But that's going to cause some problems on this kind of calculation, because it's possible that there's a year where if I'm trying to create a first task, and basically I'm creating this thing so the school year starts on January 1st, and then I would like to check that the task I'm adding has a planned completion date of January 1st. That's the ultimate outcome of what I want from the test. Well, that could potentially break if I only have a Monday to Wednesday or a Monday to Friday school year, because in any year that happens to have January 1st be a Saturday or a Sunday, then it's going to push ahead and make the dates off. So by setting this days of the week to be all days attribute that I've added, it just ensures that for the purpose of this test, every day of the week is a school day. It's not realistic, but it means that January 1st will always be considered a school day, whether that makes sense or not. So even if it's a Saturday or a Sunday. So that's something that we need to add in. And I'm going to go to this top imports because I'm missing an import, and we're going to say from home school, schools, models, import, school year. Okay, so now we've got a school year that is looking in the future, and it runs every day. It's connected with the user, and so far, so good. This should still pass because we haven't changed anything about what we're asserting on, so it should still give us a 200. It just says that it doesn't matter if a school year is 20 years in the past or 20 years in the future. It still is visible to the user because it's their data. Okay, we need to add a task, and the task, I'm not even sure that we need to give it a name. So I think we really just need a task. So let's use the course task factory and give it the course. So what that does is it says that this course now has one task on it. And I think that should be sufficient for showing the error condition that we're going to be seeing. So let's go back to our view file. Now we're ready to look at it a little bit more and make sure we understand the context data that's going in here. So it's going to be task items is, I believe, going to be a list of items. And in this list will be it's a list of dictionary items. And the dictionary item will have a planned date. So what we want to assert is that, well, let's start pulling data out so we can start talking about what we need. So let's get we'll get out of it, we'll say the task item, and we're going to say is, what is that? So it's from the context. So self get context, that's coming from Django Test Plus, and the key in the context is task items, and we're going to pull the first one. So if we made a task, there should be one on there. We haven't marked it as complete. It should show up as the list. So that's going to be there. And then we want to assert on that thing. Now we're ready to assert that, what is it we're going to assert? We want to assert that the task item planned date, because this is the first item in the school course, is going to equal to the school year's start date. If everything is going according to plan, that's how it should work. And so what that's saying is like, okay, if every day is a school day and you're starting on January 1st of 2021, then, and you have a task there, then you expect to get that task done on the first day of school. Totally reasonable thing to do. So let's run the test and see if I got it even close. All right, so now, great. This is working. This test is doing exactly what I was hoping to illustrate. We expect that this should be showing the planned date is January 1st of 2021, and instead it's showing tomorrow. So clearly what's happening is something is happening relative to today, and that's not correct. So now that we have the test in place, we can make this test pass and be confident that it is doing what we expect it to do. All right, so we need to get to today. And this is where we got to be a little bit more creative. Actually, I'm also noticing we're doing timezone.now, but .date, and that's okay, but there's actually a built-in method to timezone that does exactly the same thing. It's called local date. And if you look at the implementation, it basically does what you just saw, but gives a bit more of a better meaning. Okay, so we have the today, and this is the part that we need to adjust. But there's some interesting aspects here that are not quite accessible, so we might need to refactor this a little bit, because what we really need is I need to check the school year, and the school year, you can't get to the school year from the course. Let's see why that is. Let me open our models diagram that I've used on a number of occasions, and we can see, nope, hold on, there we go. We can see that the course is here. It's a many-to-many relationship with grade level. And grade level is what has the actual foreign key to the school year. So we know that if we can get the grade level, we can get to the school year, okay? But because there's this many relationship, there's actually not a direct line. I can't just say, go get me the grade level, because that's just not how this works. There's a separate join table that has courses and grade levels mapped together, because you can have a single course be associated with multiple grade levels in the way that this has been modeled. So in our view, we have to do a little bit more work. So the way to do that is to observe this line right here, 82. We have this grade levels thing that's here, but it's problematic, and it's problematic because it's buried in this get course method. So I can't reuse it quickly in get task items. And if I just copied the code, that's duplication, first of all, and it is more queries. So how do we get what we want? That's a good question. The other thing to observe is that this is saying all grade levels associated with this user. It's not being specific to a particular year. So in fact, it might be something that we may just not be able to get around the fact that we have to query again. So it's kind of like the way this is working, this course stuff, is it saying like you can only get out the course from the pool of grade levels that are available to this particular user, because those are the ones that are associated with their school and so on. And once you have that set of grade levels and you've done a distinct query on it, then you can pull out the particular one that matches for a certain UUID. But we can't just take one of these grade levels and say, give me the school year from it, because if this is all the grade levels that the person has ever created, then that could be in a dozen school years if this app has been around for a long time. So we need to then, once we have the course, turn around and say, what are my grade levels? And give me one of those, and then I'll take that school year. So I think we actually do need to go the other direction, which I wasn't quite anticipating, but that's okay. So maybe what do we do then? Maybe we need to save on a query. I'm trying to think through the implications of this, because this page doesn't show the grade level. All right, I never actually turned around. I should probably, and say what are the grade levels, or what's the grade level that goes with this course. It gets a little complicated because Mark is only connected to this course through a single grade level, and so I don't want to really get into that part right now. It's more coming from the enrollment. So all that's to say, how do we get the school year out of here? That's what we're really going for at this point. I want to say there's a couple of ways to do this, and I'm trying to think of if there's one that's faster or makes a better query or not. Let me throw down some code that's close, and then we can kind of refine it from there. So we want a school year. That's ultimately what we're after, is the school year. So that's like our target. How do we get there? We could get there by saying school year is that's associated with the grade level, if we want to keep backing it up that way. So then how do we get to the grade level? So we could say we want that the grade level is going to be the equal to the course. The course has grade levels related manager associated with it, and then we could say the first of those. So we don't care, like if there are multiple grade levels associated with this course, they'll all be in the same school year based on how I'm pulling this together. So that should be sufficient. But if you know your ORM stuff well enough, you can see immediately that if we did this query, you could get a single query to get the grade level, that's fine. But as soon as you do the school year, you're going to be doing a second query, because when it does this attribute access, it hasn't pulled that data. So what we want to do is right here, insert a select related on the school year, which will save us an additional query. It should, I think. I might be wrong on the way this is structured, because this is a related manager and not a regular manager, so it might be a little different in how this is going. All right, let's run the test though and see what happens. See if I blew it up. All right, I didn't blow it up. That's good news. So that means that the ORM query was probably right. But we clearly didn't solve the problem either. So this is where we need to go. Now that we've got the date, we can say, we can do the computation that says, so what I should leave a comment, because this was a good comment to have in the other spot too. Maybe I'll use the same comment and cheat. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. In fact, I think we can just totally cheat and take the whole thing. I'm not cheating. I'm using my own code, so it's clearly not cheating when you wrote this stuff. But we can talk about what's here. So there are some assumptions baked in here. And so this code is not terribly robust right now, actually. So let's make this better, because this could break. So first is not guaranteed to come back with a result. So this could come back as a none. So the first thing we need to do is we need to say if grade level, because that guarantees that the stuff will be not none. So then we can assign to a school year, but you can see that's going to be kind of rough so far. Like if I save this school year attribute, I'm not sure why Python's not complaining, because this variable at this point could be undefined. So think about it. If grade level came back as none, it would never create this variable, but then it would immediately in the next line try to access that, and that's going to lead to a bad time. I don't remember the exact error message name, but it's something about the variable not being created yet. So this is fine. I think what we should do, let's move the local date stuff to the top, and let's move the comment. The comment is in a bad place now. Let's put it here, and let's move the check in here. Okay, so now when this is happening, the school year is guaranteed to resolve to something because it's a foreign key relationship that is not nullable. So this can never be none. So that's good. So that means that we can delete that part. So now we're checking all of this stuff and an if clause, and yeah. So we're assigning to the today if the current date is in the past from this school year, which it is because we just explicitly set this up that way. So if all goes according to plan, this will change the value of today, which will then go through the rest of the calculation, and all of the offsets and stuff that I do to look up the right tasks should be changed and based on the actual day that we want. And the test passed. Look at that. So I think we can now go. Well, we actually couldn't see it on this data, could we? Because we were in a current year. And I think even if I change the school year to be something in the far future, let's try that. Maybe we can't see it. Maybe because there's also a bunch of other data in here, so I don't know if that's going to mess it up or not. So it might work. Let's change the school year to 2021 and see how that either. Oh, I already have a 2021 school year. Hold on. I did that for junk data. So let's go through, go to the school years, clear out this guy because we don't need it. And come back over here and say update the school year. Okay, so now our school year is in the future. And this is based, this is the right date. So if you notice that you might be like, wait a minute, you said that was supposed to be 1/1. It's still off. No, this particular school year I have deliberately set on January 15th, just because I wanted to play with some boundary stuff. So the fact that it's showing this on January 15th is a good thing, because that's the earliest date that it could be completed. Also, this could have also been off if next year on the 15th happened to be a Saturday. So we got pretty close to hitting that condition, in which case it would have showed up on the 18th, because we didn't make sure that school year runs on all days. Okay, and let's prove, just to prove that this is doing it, we can comment out that chunk of code that we just added and take another look at it, and now it should be the wrong dates. Yeah, now it's saying today, which is not correct. So we fixed it. Hooray. The other thing I want to do while I'm here is I want to turn on the debug toolbar and take a look at this. I want to see the queries and see that we did a reasonable number of queries. Okay. Left outer join. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Looks fine for now. I don't want to like spend too much time optimizing stuff because there's only one user and the database is tiny. So like, I just don't want to make sure there's like runaway queries. Because even if you had one user, if you had a really bad, like if we were doing this in a loop, for example, and we were getting each task one at a time, and there were hundreds of them, then that would be a slow view, whether you had one user or not. So you just always have to think about, can I get my queries down to group things together so I'm not doing things in a loop. All right, so I'm going to kill the process for a minute. We're going to look at the test. We've added the new test. It's got everything we want, and it's a school year that's in the future. It has a student and a course, and we're looking at that. It's got one task in that course, and then the planned completion date for that task that matches up with the first date of the school year. And then here's our code change we've got the local date. We did a little bit of a refactor there, saved a character apparently, and then added this new checking code that gets the grade level if it's there, and then if it is, which it should be, but there's always a possibility that something goes wonky, then it does this save comparison inside of here, because if it wasn't a grade level, this would have blown up if we tried to access it. So I think this code is safe. It's definitely getting exercised by that test, but to confirm, we can run the test suite with coverage on and hopefully get a report back that it is 100% still, and then we'll commit it and move on to the next one. All right. Whoops. I didn't sort things correctly. So pre-commit's pretty awesome too, for making sure that you're doing what you want. Makes your suite or your test code base. Sorry, I don't know what. Makes your code base look consistent by whatever tools you can apply. So let's see. Now we want to say planned dates for future school years are correct. No, this is just as vague as the other one. Our plans for future school years match the year's dates. That's a little bit more meaningful. Not much, but enough. And that's issue 156, which we'll push up and go to the next one. All right, so that was a bug. Is there a feature that we can work on now? Sometimes it's nice to get a little variety in there. It's gonna be an interesting one potentially. Let's work on it. This is not one that. Well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe because this is one that was on my list of things to observe, but it was not my spouse's, who happens to be my customer. So maybe it's the wrong thing to focus on, because this is a nice to have. So let's set that one aside. I won't even talk about what it is right now. This schedule one is basically exactly the same problem we did with the daily view. It's all the same. Same bug was manifesting itself in all three places. Need to probably figure out a way to make that generic so that if I have other places that always also have to consider the future, that I don't make this mistake again. But I will work on that thought later. But this one's kind of interesting. And it's deceptively hard. So yeah, this is probably a good one. And let's look at it. So what was the request? The request was that on the student's index page, actually I want to set this back to reasonable to this year, just because it matches up with my expectations better. On the index page, yes, this is a WSGI application. Yep, Django is a WSGI app. I'm not using any asynchronous stuff, so it's not an ASGI app. Although new versions of Django can support ASCII, which is, if you don't know, so WSGI is the, well, you probably know what WSGI app is because you're asking about it, but that's the web server gateway interface. And ASCII is the asynchronous. Can I spell that? Asynchronous. I don't actually know. Is the A and the S, or it might be asynchronous server gateway interface? Probably. So Django is adding support for asynchronous views, and asynchronous is a big topic, which I'm not going to cover, but right now anyway. But it will allow for some pretty cool features in the future that can improve scalability of your Django apps. But all Django applications, all of them that are currently out there are probably, well, I said all and then I said probably. That talk about being wishy-washy. Your average Django application, I'll say that, will be a WSGI application because that's what the Python ecosystem uses. So my application is using GUnicorn to run the WSGI app. So hope that answers your question there, Sako Pendragon. Okay, so let's look at the request that was made of me, and yeah, no problem. See what my spouse requested and what why this is going to be harder potentially than it looked. So here are two students. These are my kids' names, and where we've got an enrollment marked for each of them, as this is the 2020 school year. And the request from my spouse was to say which grade level the student is part of. So my son is my elder child, so he is in 2nd grade. So it should say, Mark is enrolled in 2nd grade in the 2020 school year. That's ultimately what this should be. And I think I remember like looking at this and thinking like, wow, that's way harder than it should be. Maybe I'm misremembering, in which case that would be awesome. So what we want to do is we want to look at the index page and let's think about this. Yeah, I think it is going to be harder than I thought. So the students index page is intended to show all of the students, and whether they are enrolled or not. It's intended to be a place where you can enroll in a particular school year and sign up for a grade level if you want to. And so it needs to show all of the students that are part of the school year, because the template says this student is not enrolled yet. Do you want to enroll them? And so on. So in order to do that, we have to do what's listed here on line 27 of capturing all of the students that belong to the user's school so that they can be displayed. So to check on their information on the grade level, you can see that what I did was I added a model, a method to the model called isStudentEnrolled, which is a Boolean method, and it's just asking the question, is this student in this school year? And if I had that in there, then on the templates, the student template, we look at it, it's doing, they are enrolled. And so that when I'm putting out the message saying that they're enrolled, all I have at that point in time is the student and the school year. What's noticeably absent is the actual grade level information. In order to get the grade level information, I need to have the enrollment. And this Boolean method that I've added does not have that. So really, I think what I need to do is put in the enrollment instead. Instead of saying is enrolled, I should return the actual enrollment for the student. And then in the template, instead of doing this in isEnrolled attribute, I can say student info enrollment. And if it's there, it can render this. And if not, it'll go down, it'll drop down and show the other information. So that's probably what I want. And that might actually enable me to get rid of this isStudentEnrolled method, because it'll probably be the only place that uses it. In fact, let's do that query real quickly. So is the student enrolled is defined in the models, using the views, and then just has some tests that are written against it. Let's check out the implementation to see if there's anything surprising in there. Yeah, it's just an exist query, so it's not even really that fancy. So I think what we can do instead is let's get rid of this and let's get the enrollment if we can get it. So we want to say, what do we want instead? I'm going to mock this out to be, and this time we're not going to go from a test-driven development approach. We'll come back in. I'm sure I will be creating some failing tests because I have 100% coverage, and I'm sure I'm testing this property. So we're going to have a failing test afterwards that we'll have to fix up, but we don't always have to work from a test. So I want to change this to be an enrollment. I want that to be there or not be there. So we want to say enrollment objects filter, and we want to say that the student is going to be one side of this, so student equals student. That's part of our query. And the other part that we want is, we know there's going to be a grade level, and we know that we need to find the grade level that matches the school year. So we're going to say school year, and then we'll say context, because I only stored the school year into the context directly. And then we want to take the first one of those. There's only going to be one. So see that this first operation is basically a quick way for me to say, either give me the one that you found, it's only going to be one, or give me none. So it's kind of it's not really a hack, but it's a way to enforce that pattern of, I'd rather you not throw an exception right now, just give me the first one if you can find it. And so now what we have is right on there. I do want to add one thing, because we are going to be looking at the grade level information. So we want to do a select related on the grade level. So we need to put that here and say grade level. So that will get us the grade level along with the enrollment, so that if we're in our template, then we'll be able to take advantage of the grade level information. So let's go back to the template, and we're going to change, I think isEnrolled is only used in this one spot. Yep. So we'll change it to enrollment now. So if enrollment is none, if it first comes back with none, then it's going to go to the elif block of this if statement. But if there was an enrollment, it means there was something there. And so we can go and we can say, add in right here, isEnrolled in enrollment grade level in the whatever school year. All right, so we have that. Let's see if we got it. Whoops, we didn't. What did I do wrong? Did I type something wrong? Enrollment. No, oh, it's in the student info. So enrollment is not in this like top, it's not at the top level of the template. So we have to say student info dot enrollment dot grade level. Whoops, and then we forgot a space after. This is why you look at this stuff. So Mark is enrolled in 2nd grade in the 2020 school year. That's what we want. And we can, again, let's put back the debug toolbar, and this is where I'll show you why we check queries and why we do select related stuff, because there will be extra queries here if we didn't do that select related operation. So we can open up this and see there's 7 queries right now. And 7 queries are, we have to do an enrollment per student, and that's not a big deal. That's a fine cost. There's probably ways that we can get all of them, but I don't want to. That would just, there's not going to be that many students in this system, so that should be a reasonable thing to do 2 of them. And you can see that it does an inner join on grade level as well, so it's getting out the grade level information. So we've got 7 queries. If we came over to here and we deleted the select related part for a moment and put it back to its previous version of this, I think the number jumps to 9 queries. 9 queries, yep. Because what's happening is we get the enrollment, and then during the template to look at the grade level, it goes to show that grade level information, and because we're using the double curlies around it and choosing to display it, it's going to call the stir method on the grade level model. That method is going to say, okay, the stir method for grade level its job is to return the name of the grade level. And what is the name? Oh, I don't have the name right now because the ORM did not fetch that data from the database. So I need to do a query right now because that's the only time that I can. So that's what select related is doing for you, is going ahead and getting the data in advance so that that you don't have to make those extra queries late in the game if you're not familiar with what that function is. So we've got the enrollment now, and we've got the view. It's doing the right number of queries. Again, this could probably be optimized by like 1, but I think that's over optimizing in this case. We're displaying the grade level in this page, and I think that's all goodness. So the next thing to do is check the views tests, because I'm sure we broke something. And also, now that we've done this, if I research for is student enrolled, you'll find that it's not used anywhere except the models. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. I have no shame in deleting code that I'm not using, and I'm not using this. So it's better, in my opinion, to keep code out of the system and make your life easier to manage. So let's get rid of optional, because that's not being used. Is type checking being used? Is school year being used anymore? No. So I think we can get rid of the type checking part too, and type checking. Like, we're not doing any type check, because the only reason I'm really using type checking on this project is when I'm doing an optional, and that optional was deleted when I deleted that model method because it was one of the input parameters. Okay, so this is gone now, and then we'll go to the area where these tests are of is student enrolled, and we can delete any test that uses that, which I think is just these. Let's see if we clean it all out. All right, no more instances of it, so it's all gone. Okay, so if we go to the views though and run this file, I expect there to be some failures, a couple failures. And the failures are because I'm looking for is enrolled and it's not there. So let's go find is enrolled. And this is actually going to change. So we know that it's going to be this thing, this enrollment factory, which I'll store in a variable right now. And we'll change to enrollment and change the value to enrollment. All right, so that test now should pass. And there's probably another is enrolled somewhere. So we've got another one where it's false. But again, we're not doing false anymore. Now we're doing checking for actual enrollment. So it's instead of is enrolled, it's not going to be that. It's going to be enrollment. And instead of false, it's going to be none, because that's what first will return back if it doesn't find anything. Okay, so let's run the whole suite. I actually kind of foolishly ran it here. I want to make sure that we still have coverage. So let's run it over here so that we can actually get coverage generation. And if it all passes, then that'll be another one done. Great. So we cleaned out some code. It's a good lesson for folks to like always delete stuff you're not using. Okay, why is that okay? That seems like a weird piece of advice, because like I worked to write this code. I wrote, it's tested, like I spent time on this. The reason I advocate for deleting code is because if you're not using it, but you think something is using it, it leads to like a burden on your mental model. Because now I can look at this enrollment class and go back to this model file and know that there's no methods that are being called on it. So it's just acting as a chunk of data at this point from the rest of the application's point of view. So had there been a method on here that was unused, I'd be stuck asking the question of like, well, what is this used for? When does this use? You're left with the burden of, if you don't know if it's used or not, and you have to do upgrades, and you might find yourself touching code that's not even being used just to do some upgrade of something else. So code is a liability is a way I've heard it being phrased. And you don't, if you can have less of it in your system, all the better. Of course, you still want things to do the work. So it's important to have the right code, but you definitely can get rid of dead code. And to assuage any fears, like I'm using version control. So if I ever found a need that like, I really need that method back, like I find some use case where all I am ever going to need is the Boolean, although clearly I just found a case where that wasn't true, then I could reintroduce the method. No harm, no foul. I could search the code base for it if I thought about it. Although by the time it comes to reintroduce the method, I'll probably have learned more and want to write a different version anyway that does something better given the modeling of the state of the world at that time. Anyway, end of the soapbox of that. So we got rid of the model method. We updated the test to have the enrollment. We changed the view to use the enrollment, and we made sure to do the select related. And then we needed a small template change to actually display the enrollment in the end. And we'll check committed it and say show grade level with enrollment info on student index. And that fixes, what does that fix? It's 137. Okay. Let's push that up. All right. I'm trying to think of if that's a good enough place to stop or if we should keep going. So where I'm at like mentally with this project is my spouse is actively like planning for the upcoming school year. So she is looking for features that make it possible to do the preparation part. I think I've broken this down before, but on the app, if we look at things, there's this school year phase where it's like building out the school year and all of the content. And then there is this planning phase where it's like, here's how things are going. And she's really not super interested in this part right now because she's actually doing this prep work for the 2021 school year. You can believe it. She's that kind of planner. So she's actually not going to need a lot of these features right now that are related to the interaction with the site and how to see it. So that means that my priorities at the moment are helping her make this experience, the one about the building, as good as it can be to build up the data. And then as she gets into the school year with my kids next year, she'll very quickly be like, yeah, this area of this weekly schedule is totally deficient here. It's not doing what I want here. And, like, she doesn't have that information yet because she hasn't been using it in that function. So that makes me focus on things that build out to make it easier to do rapid building. For instance, off stream over the last week, I have been working on adding a new bulk creation feature. So she wanted an ability to add a bunch of tasks all at once. And so now you can go to add tasks and you can do this bulk create thing. And I used a Django form set to let her add 10 tasks at a time. And I want this to be nicer in the future, where it could be dynamic of like, oh, I want a few more tasks. Let me boom, 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 add 3 more. If this isn't what she wants, or like she doesn't want to see 10 all the time. I don't know. I haven't talked to her about it. But that's what I'm optimizing for right now. So when I look at the list of issues to work on, some of them are about kind of locking down the data model for things that shouldn't be happening. Like a course shouldn't be allowed to run on the weekend when the school year's on the weekend, because it will never display it and get all messed up. So there are those kind of things that need to happen, but they're not like critical. But I need to like sit down and prioritize with her of what's the important stuff that she would like to see next. In the absence of that information, I'm going to continue kind of polishing and refining, as you saw here. Like the things that we worked on tonight were display things. They were things about like, what is it going to look like what is the projected completion date for this particular course for my student? And that was why those planned dates needed to be accurate. Or what are my students enrolled in? I want to see that really quickly. So that's why we added that on the students index page, so that there's no ambiguity. It's not like my son is enrolled in kindergarten next year. She wants to be able to see like what it actually is. So I think that's what I'm going to kind of continue to do is refine this building side for a while. And if it does really start to like slow down more, as she has expressed just general happiness with what's here, it seems to be working fairly well for her, which is good news. But if things slow down, I'll probably start to return to some of the things that we were working on not too long ago. In fact, like everything from above this line here has been really recent stuff that she has requested, although they're starting to age. But I've got a bunch of things that came in like every time I talk to her, so it's kind of the stack is growing faster than I've been able to work it down. So as this list grows, I need to make sure that we're doing the right work. So in future streams, we will probably continue to do that. I'm hoping to continue to work with her and find out what she needs as she's going through it. All that being said, I think this is probably a decent place to stop for the evening. We did go through a bug and a feature, so you got to see both sides of that. We did test-driven development and not. We got to see the benefits of having a robust test suite. Like I was able to confidently run the test, know I had 100% test coverage, and I write pretty exhaustive tests. So when I changed some code, changed is enrolled to enrollment, I knew there's going to be a failure because I knew that I tested the conditions that made that is enrolled thing need to exist in the first place. So that's some of the benefits of working on a side project that has good test coverage, is I have a good safety net that gives me confidence that changes I made are good, and I can, right after this stream, or you know what, let's do it right now. I've pushed this up. We can just deploy it now. That's the other thing. So I'm using Heroku, and I've already pushed up the code and committed it, and we can deploy. So this will go live, and those features that she had been asking for will be there. So that's what you get when you have something that you have high confidence in through tests. I don't have a staging site right now. I'm not too worried about it because I hear her watching Family Feud in the corner from Amazon. So I know she's not actively on there, and she's my one user, so I can kind of easily push out these updates. Not only knowing that I'm not disrupting my customers, and I'm also pushing it out there because I have the confidence that the changes are what I want them to be. So that's we'll see this kind of go along, which is, if you've never seen a Heroku deploy, this is what it looks like. It builds up the application. It runs some stuff because it's detected that it's a Django app, so it collects all the static files. And I added a release command in here. So let's see that for a quick second. So if we look in the proc file, there are 2 lines in here. So I added this release command, and what that does is it tells Heroku that during the deployment process, it's going to run whatever command I've defined before it starts things. So the way I've done it is to run migrations with every deploy, and the deploy is not going to go live until those migrations are run. So that ensures that my database is always up to date. So the new changes are out there, and I can open up the app and we can see that hopefully everything is still alive and well. It is. My account doesn't have any data in it. I'm logged in, but it's pretty empty. But hers does. So that is the features that we're going to work on tonight. Again, we'll get back to more of this tomorrow, trying to build out some more stuff. I have some thoughts on doing more stuff with JavaScript. I'm very hesitant to do a lot of JavaScript stuff on this project because I think it can be a time sink for the benefit. Not to say that JavaScript is bad, but it's just not. It doesn't make for rapid development for a single developer who has to work on all sides of the application at all times. But there is definitely some JavaScript that we could apply. As I said, we've got this bulk task feature, and I'd like to be able to have a button that says add a new one to the bottom. So if she's working on a whole course all at once and wants to add 50 of these, she could do that. And dynamically create new forms on this big bulk creation page. So I'm going to need to do some JavaScript to do that, and I need to explore some options about what JavaScript tool to use. I'm leaning towards, what am I leaning towards? It's called Alpine JS, I think. I'm leaning towards this one because I've seen it suggested in a bunch of places. It's very, as you can see, its little tagline here, a rugged minimal framework for composing JavaScript behavior in your markup. So I think what's nice about this particular tool from what I've encountered is that you bring in one file, and maybe it's a little bit like modern jQuery. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But you define with some data attributes the JavaScript you want to add to do some stuff. So you can, which kind of works well, or I think will work well with server rendered pages like Django is, and give us the abilities we want. So I don't know if this is going to be right or not. Still to play with it. For example, I need to put in this thing. We need to be able to drop in a whole new form. So I don't know what its templating capabilities are like. So I got to do some research on what I want as the next tool. But this is a likely candidate for what I would use to add dynamic stuff to the page. But we'll see. That's probably the end of it for tonight. This content will go up on YouTube, so if there's anything you want to review about what I did, you're welcome to do so. Thank you for joining in and being a quiet crowd tonight, but that's okay. It helped me stay productive. Hopefully you learned something. And if you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, as a reminder, I am MB Layman there. I'm also on Patreon with the same account name of MB Layman. So if you found this useful and you want to contribute financially, you can do that as well. So thank you for your time and have a great night. Take care.